that a fair deal, do you think?
Look, it's not a socialist economy. This is capitalism.
Love it. If you have it all figured out, go sell it yourself then. People say that lifetime users have a tendency to be like Karens.
Episode 2 of 0 to Million SaaS podcast with Simon Høiberg. This is a big one, LTDs. But before we even get there, Simon, give us a recap of the first episode and what your initial thoughts were.
Yeah, that's a great one. Let's do that. We just got the first episode edited and finished today, actually, and watched the whole thing. I liked it. Conversational, casual, and I think we got to touch on a lot of super cool points. If you just dropped into episode number 2 here and didn't get to watch episode 1, I suggest that you go and do. But a quick recap, we introduced the podcast. We're going to talk about how we're growing our SaaS products, Client Manager over at Kyle's and 8base from here to $1 million ARR. And that's what this whole podcast is going to be about. The first episode, we talked a little bit about where we are now, how we're going to do it, a bit of growth strategies, a bit of very creative growth strategies. Let's just say it like that. And what you just said it, we're going to talk about lifetime deals today, LTDs. Are you excited? How's Client Manager going? Let's just start there. What anything new since last time we talked?
Yeah, making progress on some awesome features. About to start some marketing things. I did start some Google ads on like a small scale. I'm going to start in the next week or so some like Facebook ads and some other social media stuff. And then from next week or from March, the email outreach. So I'm keen to get into that. I'm sure we're going to get into the nuggets on the details, how it goes and everything. So that's sort of an update, but no major moves in terms of MRR. We're going to get there. Hopefully I can share some nice news next month. So yeah, that's the update. And how about 8base?
All doing good, but I would just want to mention, you changed the landing page of Client Manager recently, didn't you?
Yeah, I did actually, and I shared it to you, and you actually liked it, and I
did.
Yeah, and it's good that you like it because you come across landing pages all the time and everything. And inspiration-wise, I actually looked at ClickFunnels, and I sort of followed, the layout and some of the font styles and the copy and the color, making it a bit more contrasting. So far, it actually does seem like like an increase in free trials. And also more users, nice. which is great. But we're talking on a small scale, but still it's definitely an increase. But at least the feedback is good. So I'm keen to scale that up. Let's see how it goes.
Let's see how it goes. I particularly like the new design. I really think it's nice. It made me wonder, I'm looking at 8base's website sometimes. This is the very first version. I actually didn't change much about it since I initially built it in, I think it was a weekend before we launched it. But it has a completely different, this kind of dark theme, a little bit like a developer tool vibe to it. And I don't know. I was watching Client Manager's new website, and I'm kind of I sort of miss this bit more fresh and bright design sometimes. Who knows? I might give 8base's landing page an overhaul again soon.
Nice.
Now I got a bit inspired by seeing what you're doing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But in terms of updates, nothing big. We're in a kind of a little bit of a painful sort of crossover now. We got a lot of things ready really fast. So the backstory with 8base is that this was actually a tool we built internally to handle the support pressure on one of my other SaaS products, FeedHive. So this was not even meant to be a SaaS to begin with. We built the whole thing as tooling for our internal operations. And then last minute, within 3 weeks or so, we decided that this is so good that we should really turn this into a SaaS. So we sort of repackaged everything and made it more generalized and then just threw it out there. Now users are on board, but we now have technical debt. So we're now catching up on a ton of things behind the scenes that before we can start improving and start iterating and taking some of all the many feature requests we've gotten from our users, we sort of still need to build a proper base. And that's where we are right now. So it seems like it's a little bit quiet. Not a lot of things are happening. And some of our users are getting a little bit impatient. When are we going to have this and that and this and that? And through this, we are really working hard. And I have 2 developers full time just grinding at it, trying to get everything in a good shape where we can start, where we have a good foundation we can start building on top of. So not a whole lot happened since last time we talked. but a lot of sort of things behind the scenes, under the hood, things that we're trying to get in a good shape.
One thing that you mentioned, and man, I don't know if that was intentional, but if it was, ingenious. You said a proper base. Is that a proper base for a base?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And in terms of like user feedback, are you noticing a lot more churn or like complaints, or actually like, because it's the dust has settled now, right? Or like, is there sort of a balance between users loving it and users hating it? Like, what is the sentiment at the moment?
I think that there's right now we're in that, can you call it a little bit of a honeymoon phase, where the users that come in, they realize that this is a super early stage tool that we literally just launched. So the most common reaction we get is excitement and like, okay, this is starting out well. And this is a good thing. However, in that, there's also the potential to disappoint if users don't get the sense that like, this is starting out well. Is it also gonna continue well? Is this the tool that's gonna really, because most users I think are excited to be a part of something new, or at least there's a type of users that are excited about getting to help shape the direction of where this tool is going. And obviously that requires you to follow up and also show them that like we're rolling on some of all the suggestions that we're getting. And so right now, that's a little bit what I'm struggling with, because I'm afraid that some of our users are getting a little bit impatient and a little bit like losing the excitement a little bit if we're not rolling fast enough. But my experience with building other tools is that you can also roll too fast, and suddenly you have a ton of issues in the long run that you now need to address and deal with. And so it's inevitable that you have to go through this phase. And doing it now at the very early stages of the tool is it's all about laying a good foundation to build on top of.
Yeah, and I think just to wrap up on your point, I think that is, how SaaS works, right? Like, it's that constant evolution of improving and creating more features, because I mean, even massive like tools and SaaS tools like, let's say, Slack or something, they lack some core things which I think that they should have, for example. And then you've got other ones which are like starting out more bootstrapped. They also lack things, but it's that constant evolution. So yeah, I think you just described like SaaS 101.
Yeah, exactly. And now that we're onto that, because let's just dig into it here. I know that you recently did a lifetime deal on Appsumo, and you piled in a bunch of new users and therefore also a lot of feedback. And rumors have it that the feedback coming from this particular segment of users that are into LTDs can be a little bit rough sometimes. I think we can say it like that.
I think you said it nicely.
I mean, right? But what has your experience been so far? You were on Appsumo, one of the handful of big marketplaces there are for these. How was it? Is it? Have you been excited about it? And is it something that you feel you've really benefited from?
Oof, man, where do we go with this? Okay, so LTDs, for those who don't know, it's lifetime deal. So you selling a software, once off, and you have to service the customer, ongoing, essentially for the lifetime of the product. That's sort of lifetime deals as a nutshell. I don't know if you would add to that, Simon.
No, that's pretty spot on. Pay once instead of paying monthly or yearly, and then own it forever.
Yeah, nice. And in terms of Appsumo, so I'm actually I literally just ended, I think it was a couple of weeks ago. So it's very fresh, and it sort of ends in, I think, in a few weeks, where it's like properly cut off, where no one can do any more refunds, where we can turn off the API, all of those things. So it's still fairly new. Let's start maybe pros and cons, right? Just like everything, there's pros and cons in it. And I think it was a good experience. Maybe I can start off by saying this. I think the Appsumo team is incredible. I think the marketplace is incredible. I think with the right SaaS platform, or tool, it is really good. It can really be good for your business. Now, if you have to ask me, would I do it again? The answer is no. Why? Simply because I expected it to do better. So I think it was just a bit of a difference in terms of expectations, right? At the beginning, I was expecting it where my cut would at least be 50K. that's my cut after all the fees. And I think you know the breakdowns much better than I do, but that's sort of what I was expecting. But I'll probably settle on, after all refunds, maybe 22, 23, in that sort of ballpark. Now, for some listening, that might be like, wow, that's amazing, 20 plus grand, man, that's a lot of cash.
That's a lot of money, right?
Yeah. However,
but let's just because you're saying like you expected your cut to be 50K. That was what you were hoping for.
Yeah.
Let's just, how does this work? Like Appsumo, they also have to earn some money from this deal. How is these things distributed? Like how much would the total revenue for these lifetime deals have to be for you to get $50,000 out of it?
It varies. From my understanding, you would take a 20 to 30% cut, and then they would take 20%, and then they say that 50% goes to marketing. So that's sort of how the 100% is split based on revenue. So yeah, that's generally how it works.
So Appsumo take 50% of all the revenue. They post that, like on average on all their products, they take 50% of all the revenue generated from sales. They put that directly into advertisement. So they run ads. They have like massive newsletters. They sometimes also host events. They do all these kinds of things. And generally speaking, they take 50% of all the revenue from all products to run this huge machine.
Yeah.
And then the remaining 50%, you get 30% of those, and Appsumo take 20%, and that's their profit.
Yeah. You explained it nicely. Yeah.
Is that a good deal? Is that a fair deal, do you think?
Look, I mean, it's not a socialist economy, this is capitalism. If they wanted to, they could take 90%. It's like they're not forcing us to go on, So fair is relative, of course. But if you ask me, yes, definitely. And the reason why is because for those who don't know about Appsumo, it's basically a massive marketplace. I think it's something like 2 million people, I don't know, on their database or something. I don't know, you would know, Simon. But it's a lot of people, and it's made of like agency owners, founders, SaaS, a lot of different people, solopreneurs, all of that stuff. So their database is massive in terms of your reach. So I think it's the best way to think of it is like Groupon for software products. So yeah.
I totally agree. And I can quickly jump in for those that are watching here and don't know. I also launched on Appsumo with my SaaS product, FeedHive. It's a few years ago, so I have the very same experience as you do, Kyle, and I have the very same opinion about this. In fact, some of the objection that I hear most often from other people is Appsumo, they're greedy, they take way too much, you only get 30% of the sales. What is that? People have to understand that a distribution channel the size and as powerful as the one of Appsumo is so extremely valuable. It is much more worth than your product. And this is often coming from people who are extremely product centric. They come with this whole like, I'm coming with the product, I'm coming with the value. And like, I'm doing Appsumo a favor coming here with this great product they can sell. Nah, dude, it's the other way around. Like, but if you have it all figured out, go sell it yourself then. Like, I really, really think that people should understand the immense value you get out of getting the distribution that Appsumo can offer. They have a newsletter list, I think, of 800,000 people. They can send out an email and reach 800,000 people just like that. They are experts at advertisement. They run big scale ads on YouTube, on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn and so on and so on. They really, really have, I think it's more than 10 years of experience reaching people and selling these deals. So I really, really wouldn't undervalue that. I think it is perfectly fair, the distribution. I at least have never had any concern about, like, I don't think I felt cheated by Appsumo in any way.
Okay, so I'm going to put you on the spot here, Simon, and you probably didn't expect this, and neither did I, because I literally put my laptop here so I can read it, and I wouldn't usually prepare like this. So I've got a tweet open, right, and I favorited it in my bookmarks. It is from you in July 5th, 2022, and I used this as inspiration, for my Appsumo launch and everything, but it is so full of practical nuggets. And I want to put you on the spot here and shoot some things through to you, and then let's see what comes from it. So you say, my startup made 400K in its first year. 300K of them was generated in the first 2 months. And then you say, how? Lifetime deals. and then you say like how the breakdown was in Appsumo. I actually didn't know this, but it was the top 5 best-selling products, and it generated more than 300K in revenue. I mean, first of all, that's massive. What do you have to say about that?
Well, yes, it was quite great. We're saying it was on the top 5 best-selling products in the period we were on Appsumo. So in the 2 months we were on Appsumo running our campaign, it was the top 5 best-selling products. So not in the entirety of Appsumo. There are products on Appsumo that has done more than 1 million. So I don't think that FeedHive goes even on top 10 in the entire lifetime of Appsumo. But top 5 in the 2 months we were there, yes. 300,000, it was more than I expected. And from the roughly 30%, I took 100,000 home from that deal. I was very satisfied with that.
Massive. Okay, so you mentioned something else here in another insight. You say there's an obvious risk. You're acquiring customers who only pay once, but you have to support them, operational costs and all of that. That is such a crucial point that I think a lot of people forget with LTDs.
Yes. What do I have to comment on that? Well, there's not much to say. It's very important to try to put a little time and effort into planning this whole thing. If you are running a type of product that have immense operational costs, for instance, if you're running a product that's very heavy on AI, using OpenAI's APIs, or you're using any type of service that is really computationally expensive to run, you should reconsider how the finances of this will work. What I do want to say is there's a bit of a misconception. Many people think that when someone buys a lifetime deal from you, you're now stuck with them forever, because that's sort of in the word, lifetime deal. That's not true. Lifetime users churn too, for various reasons. They either grow out of your tool, they go on to something new, they might love it so much that they want to upgrade to one of your higher tiers on a yearly or monthly basis so that they can get the full features. We have several users on FeedHive that did that. Or for whatever reason they change, it could be a lot of things, but they churn. So there is a churn rate just like there is with subscribers. Appsumo users or LTD users, they churn too. And as a matter of fact, I don't know if this is true throughout the general LTD community, but from what I can see on FeedHive, the churn rate for the average LTD user is higher than for the average subscriber. So they are more prone to churn. And so, no, you're not going to be supporting them forever. And it's also worth remembering that your monthly or yearly subscribers aren't going to stay forever either. They also churn. You can calculate this. If you have enough data, you know what your churn rate is. For instance, on FeedHive, we have a monthly churn rate of well around 8%. Yeah, stupidly high. I know. But yeah, that's how it is. Roughly around 8%. So that means after a given time, if we were not getting new users at a given time, everyone would have churned. So that also means that you can actually take the average of all of these users that would eventually churn and see what the average, we call it lifetime value of the user. So you take the average monthly subscription they're paying for, then you divide it in on the expected time you have them before they leave. And then you can see the average lifetime value of one single user. So in theory, you could just charge that lifetime value and get the whole thing up front. And considering, like assuming that the churn rate between an LTD user and a subscriber is exactly the same. It's actually higher with an LTD user, but assuming it's the same, you could just charge them that lifetime value and financially it would be exactly the same.
Okay, so based on that logic, what is the average LTD value of an average user for FeedHive at the moment?
I can't remember. To be completely straight up with you, I actually can't remember.
Because following up on that, whatever the number is, let's say it's $300, $500, $1,000, would you consider doing an LTD or would you stick with MRR?
It depends, because here's the problem with lifetime deals. There is a certain relationship between you that runs the tool and the lifetime user that you're now supporting that is prone to cause friction. And it's hard to explain. A lot of people say that lifetime users have a tendency to be some call them like Karens, or like they're that client, that meme that everyone shares, that the $200 client keeps being like, I want this revision, and they want 10 revisions, and like we're in this together now. We need to make sure it's like, and they keep asking for things. They're so demanding, and then the $10,000 client just goes like, oh, it looks great, money sent. Yeah. There is this like in freelancing, there's that meme everyone shares. It's a little bit the same here. There's a smell of that. Like the LTD user tend to be this user. Some of them are incredibly demanding, and they are, I don't know if you can say that there's a certain level of entitlement with these users. For some reason, they think that because they paid you $59 one time, they're now entitled to like premium support, you jumping up and down and fixing their issues as soon as they see them. And there's a complete sort of disconnect between the money that they paid you and the value that they're expecting from you as a person behind the tool. And this is the common sort of idea that you hear from a lot of founders. But let me just say something straight up here. There's also disconnect going the other way, because the truth is, no matter how we want to say this or not, the moment the lifetime user has paid you, there is less incentive for you to give them the same sublime support experience than with a monthly payer, because they can't churn. Yeah. Let's just say it as it is.
Yeah, it's a good point.
And if you're a founder, you ethically, hopefully you are that kind of founder that try to serve your users fairly, but it is what it is. And I think this relationship causes friction in both directions. And this is definitely something a lot of founders have commented on.
Yeah. I think you actually touched on the negatives of LTDs really well. And man, as you were talking, I was just like getting reminded of this guy who bought. So I had like, I think 2 tiers. The first tier was, I think, like $50. Then the other tier was like $200. So in terms of like what I sold on Appsumo, right? And yeah, I was just thinking about like the people who bought $200, there's the type of questions that they asked, and the expectations and how they addressed it in terms of support. It was very formal. It was like, hey, can you help with this? Or hey, I noticed this bug, or whatever. But moving on to the $50 payments, it's like swear words, and then this other guy on Friday, so it was about 4 p.m. my time, right? So I usually clock off then and like switch off. 4 p.m. he sends a support ticket. Saturday morning he sends another one. Saturday evening, Sunday, and then eventually he sends another one on Monday morning. He's like, your support is terrible and whatever. I'm like, man, just chill. We don't work on weekends, So yeah, I think expectation wise, they paid this and they expect this, right? So anything else that you can add from a negative perspective, and then maybe we can talk about the pros and the benefits of actually doing LTVs.
No, I think I pretty much touched upon it. I think that the biggest con to consider is cost of operation. Can you actually afford running this tool and support the users even though they only pay once? And I think a lot of founders, they are tempted to just like make a killer deal. Appsumo will encourage that, because they also want to have a deal that's really sellable. But be careful and be fair to yourself and your future finances. That, and then understand that there are a lot of LTD users that had a lot of bad experience with founders who didn't treat their users very well, especially if they came from Appsumo or other places. So they're on the edge. And I think it would be very one-sided to just say the LTD users are this and that and this and that. This 100% goes back to the founders as well. There are a lot of founders that have not been treating their users very well. So just be careful about that whole relationship and try to minimize the potential friction that can come from this way that you now depend on each other. Financially in one way and support-wise in the other direction. That would be the biggest cons, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think you covered all of them. I can't think of anything else. Maybe support is like ongoing and it's very hectic. It's whatever you think it's going to be worse. so I think, in terms of the positives, right, of doing LTDs, besides financial, getting all the cash up front, what are some benefits that you can think of, of justifying doing LTDs? I want to hear that from you, actually. You have this fresh in your memory. You just had the experience recently. Let me hear about some of the upsides that you had from,
You started the interview by saying, how was it with Appsumo? Let's talk a little bit about what was the experience with Appsumo specifically as a company running these deals?
First of all, how the experience was, Appsumo is incredible. I really like the professionalism. The guys that I worked with, unfortunately, they're actually not there now. I worked with 2 different business managers, and within a few months, they're both gone. So I think they're doing their own things now. I think they've got like a hard turnaround there. But in terms of all the other people, incredibly nice to deal with, and really, really understanding. I had some questions. I had some favors to ask. Can we remove this? Reduce the period, all of these types of things, and they were actually willing. So I really, really appreciate that. Now, in terms of sort of the why behind it, I think there's some SEO benefits. There's definitely awareness benefits. There's social credibility benefits because I got like basically 1,000 users up front. And yeah, I think maybe I'll start with that. And then we can maybe add on it from there. So do you have anything to add to that? Do you agree? Do you disagree with that?
Yeah, first of all, 100% agree with your experience with Appsumo. It was the same when we were launching. Like, incredibly professional. Their whole pipeline and their way of operating is just on point. Everything is planned out in advance. They keep every single deadline. Payment is paid on time. They help you with legal stuff and forms. They help you integrate. And everything is it was a butter smooth experience. There was always someone to reach out to and get help and get questions answered. So incredibly professional team. I 100% agree with that. And I agree with the other thing you said as well, like the getting users on board, getting word of mouth, and getting the promotion is the biggest upside. That's bigger than the money that you get up front, in my opinion.
Yeah. And then maybe to add to that, 2 other things. So it's the bug feedback, and it's very cool. So you think you've done some QA and gone through your product, but wait until you get like hundreds of people going through it all in one go, and you're like, my word, this is so obvious. Why is this broken? So
it's overwhelming. Yeah. The first time you do this. Yeah.
So the feedback that we got was really good in terms of fixing bugs, and then because it's a weird feeling. So every time someone reports a bug, I get upset, but I'm actually so happy because I know that we can fix it and then sort it out so that we don't hear it again. And then also the suggestions on features. And even though we have like sort of a basic product, it's only about a year old, we're competing with big brands, right? And I must say, the feedback that we got overall, people really love it compared to these bigger, brands and everything. So that's promising, which I like. The other one is upselling. So once you have like an LTD, and you actually touched on it, users would buy it, and then you would sell them like different add-ons or something. And for us, we've got some more things to add, like let's say white label and all of these other things, which it was tempting to actually include that in the Appsumo deal. And I'm sure we would have got a few hundred more users. However, I just sort of weighed it up, and I saw that the sales were a bit slower than I expected. So I thought it's not worth it. Pros and cons, and then I think it's going to be better just to sell it as like an add-on or like an MRR or something like that. So that's my perspective. Anything more to add to that?
No, I think you pretty much covered it.
Now I've got another question, and I think you touched on it earlier. So doing Appsumo, or maybe like a deal site, I mean, there's so many of them, or doing LTDs yourself, maybe to your own audience or through your own, on advertising and everything. What should you do? And pros and cons of both.
Boom. That's a good one. Well, I actually did this with a tool that I launched a year later. So after I did FeedHive on Appsumo, 1 year later, I did another tool called LinkDrip, which is a link shortener that actually integrates with FeedHive. And this time I chose to go to sell LTDs as a pre-sale. And this worked, I would say, surprisingly well. We sold this for also a total of 2 months. And in the first month, we had already generated $75,000 in pre-sale LTDs.
Wow.
And in the total of the 2 months, we actually generated more than $100,000 for LinkDrip. And the interesting part was that this was actually a part of my product validation. I wanted to see if this was something of interest to people. So at this point, I had only spent I think, around 8 hours creating a landing page, and that was it. Landing page, Stripe account, posted on social media, made a promo video, just out there you go, and sales were pouring in, and a lot of the people who purchased were the same LTD users who already owned an LTD for FeedHive because they wanted that integration. And I think my personal experience with this was super good. However, it's needless to say, this requires you to have an audience. Because I also know people who do, for instance, Appsumo, they have a self-listed version as well, where you can just go in and self-list. I'm not sure they removed that recently, actually, but they had at some point. But the average person that puts their product on the self-list here, they get close to nothing. So obviously, if you want to sell your own deal and you don't want to use someone like Appsumo, you need to have an audience. At this point, I was promoting to hundreds of thousands of people on Twitter and plus 50,000 on YouTube, I think it was back then, and a total of, I think, more than 200,000 people. So this is where you need to build some sort of distribution channel yourself before this works. I wouldn't do it again, though. That's my... It was, it turned out well, and we have now just around, I think last time I checked, it was 100,000 ARR on LinkDrip.
Wow.
So it's doing well. Yeah. Also in a monthly recurring, it's decent. However, I found it kind of stressful. Obviously, all the money I earned from the lifetime deals, it's sort of a little bit stressful having, like, now you have $100,000 on your account extra and no product, and just a lot of users sort of expecting it. And, you know, I didn't spend the entire 100,000 building a product, but I probably spent significantly more than I would have if we didn't have to rush and be all like. And for me, it's like how we normally roll on my team. We don't use like Scrum, or we don't have sprints. We don't have this whole deadline mechanism, because I found that it's stressful for me as a founder, and it's particularly stressful for my team. So my developers, they perform much worse when I tell them this and this date we have to have it ready. Instead, I just let them do their thing in a comfortable pace. The quality of what we produce is just infinitely much better that way. But this one time, we had to do it with a deadline, because we told our users this date, we'll release it, you will get access to this tool. And it wasn't actually a particularly fun experience. But again, like, if you're a kind of founder on a team and you've been used to working in enterprise software and you're used to deadlines, and this is just how you couldn't imagine it any differently, yeah, I guess it's a good, it has its pros for sure.
Yeah. Well, listen, I mean, I'm a user of LinkDrip, and I like the simplicity. I mean, you're competing with like Bitly and all of these other ones, and what you guys have created like in such a short time, it ticks the boxes, you know, and I think it's even got like, it's a bit more advanced than actually what I expected. So yeah, well done, and kudos to you and the team.
Thanks,
and then there's one other thing that you didn't mention for LTDs, and that is Tiny Kiwi. I think you're still running those LTDs or not?
I am.
Okay.
I purchased Tiny Kiwi a little over a year ago. I acquired it from a guy through Twitter actually, who were sort of burned out on the tool. He wanted to do something new, but he had actually laid a very nice foundation and built a small sort of graphics tool. And there's a long backstory to this. We had tried to get Canva integrated with FeedHive for God knows how long. Then we were trying with another tool called Vista Create, and they sort of kept, they asked for a lot of money to integrate it. It's just like a stupid thing. And our users were like, why can't we have a graphical tool with FeedHive? Like there are other social media management tools, they have Canva and stuff. So when this guy came around and said like, he want to sell this tool, which is Tiny Kiwi, is sort of like a lightweight Canva. I was like, you know what? I'm going to buy this one, and then I'm going to put that into FeedHive. And then we're going to develop this. And we're at the time when I acquired it, I had like big vision for this tool. Like, we're going to go up there and compete with Canva, and we're going to be the next generation lightweight image editing tool directly in the browser and all. It did not turn out that way, like, at all. I had a developer working on it and sort of like shaping it up, fixing a lot of the things from when we took over from the other owner. And after a while, I realized that I sort of lost motivation for that tool. The developer that was working on it sort of got very tired of working on it too. He wanted to do something else, so I moved him to one of my other products. And then I said, you know what? I'm just going to sell this as a lifetime deal.
Nice. Yeah.
No, the whole subscription thing doesn't matter. So I started running ads on Facebook, and I just sold this deal for $67 lifetime deal. And these ads are still running today, and we're generating $5,000 to $10,000 in sale per month. And it's doing very decent. And it's worth saying, Tiny Kiwi is a tool that is running almost entirely in the browser. So it is close to free from a back-end operational perspective. Everything, as soon as you open the tool, everything you do in the tool is inside the browser. It doesn't really use an API and a backend. It makes a few database calls and it does authentication, but that's really it. So you can run this tool and it costs us close to nothing. I've calculated at some point that we would only see a slight price increase on the operational side from our servers whenever we onboard another 10,000 users. So we can really, really pour in a lot of users, and this tool costs us close to nothing to run. So it is perfect to run as a lifetime deal because there is no overhead cost for any new users. And users are very happy to pay a lifetime deal for this, and then they own it. Then I have a designer I hired, and he's building templates. So you go log into Tiny Kiwi, kind of like Canva, you'll get a lot of fresh new templates all the time. So that's really the only cost, is having this designer build templates into Tiny Kiwi.
Yeah, and I remember you telling me about Tiny Kiwi and then your vision and goals and everything, but I really like how you pivoted and adapted it, and it's like extremely profitable, so lean, and yeah, I mean that's like a good SaaS, you know. so well done on that. So the question I have for you in terms of LTDs, right? Given our conversation, given the pros and cons, for Aidbase specifically, would you do an LTD for Aidbase?
I'm considering it, yeah.
Okay. And would this be by yourself or listing on Appsumo?
I'm considering both options. That's all I can say right now.
Okay.
But what about you? You said very early in this podcast that you would not do it again.
Yeah.
So you would not, in a year, you wouldn't come back to Appsumo, do a comeback launch, and get some more users on board. And
not for Client Manager. I think for a system or tool like that, for to do really well, you need about 2 to 3 years, development, and that's what I've seen, in the competitors who really get like massive. They've been around for like 3, 4, 5 years, and then they come back. I'm not really interested in doing that. I just wanted to do it once, get the user feedback and all the stuff that I described. However, we are working on another SaaS in the background. There have been some issues, I think it's a lot more, like in terms of running costs, it's nothing, but it's very useful and applies to every single business owner, even personal, to help you manage something. And it's really simple, really clean, just like Client Manager. And so I think that one will be ideal. And that one we'll probably list, or I'll probably do myself and in an LTD in about 3 months, and then probably about 2 to 3 months after that, list on Appsumo. So I think for Client Manager, no, I don't think it's an ideal fit, but for other stuff, yes.
You're very open.
Yeah.
That's awesome. One last thing I simply want to hear you just comment on.
Oh, no.
When I go on Google right now and I search for Client Manager, I can't find it on Appsumo.
Oh.
Why is that?
Yeah,
dum.
Man,
why is that?
I don't know if they would. They probably won't listen. So Noah Kagan, if you're listening, just turn off now. But this was one of the favors that they did for me. When I said, hey, can we we turned it off. Can we still service our users for refunds and APIs and all of those types of things. But they don't have to Google it, because if you have to Google it now, Client Manager, the Appsumo page would show right on the top and it would affect my SEO. And everyone would like reach out to me and be like, hey, you're running these LTDs, can I get the LTD? And I'm like, no, we finished it. So it affected sales and, user morale and everything. And it was very difficult to convince him like, hey, rather sign, an annual deal or something like that. So they really did me a favor. I don't know if they do this for everyone, but it was worth asking, and hence why I think the team is very understandable, very professional, and it was really nice working with him. I just think it was more, it's like that argument. It's like, it's me, it's not you,
Yeah. But it's a great thing to put on the cons list though. So if you're like completely new, your web page doesn't have a lot of ranking yet, Appsumo's website has so many visitors, so it ranks really high. So if you're on Appsumo and people go to Google and search for the name of your tool, there's a good chance that Appsumo will actually rank higher than your own website, which is kind of like, I get it, like that's, and then especially as you say for user morale, then the first thing new users are going to be met with is what they missed out on.
Exactly.
And now suddenly your subscription doesn't seem like such a good deal anymore. It's a problem. I totally agree.
And also, I mean, they would only remove it like 60 days after your deal ends. So like for 2 months afterwards, people are searching for your brand name, and then they see Appsumo. So that was sort of the issue, and then we sorted it out. So yeah.
So if you're hearing this, Noah Kagan, rank lower. Get your website down there. It's annoying for us small founders that your site is ranking so high.
Yeah, and we also want to chat with you.
Yeah, let's bring Noah Kagan here on the show. That would be super cool. I actually think that there's another CEO running the business now. I don't think Noah Kagan is that involved anymore, but
wow.
I think they were doing 80 million or something like that in sales last year.
Yeah.
80 million in lifetime. That's insane.
Yeah.
I really I have big kudos coming towards this company. They really did. They really did great.
Yeah, and cool guy, and a really nice guy, solid advice. And who knows, 5 years from now, you might be the next Noah Kagan, so we'll see.
Let's see. Yeah, let's see about that.
Simon, any parting words? Anything that we didn't discuss that you wanted to wrap up on?
I think I've exhausted it pretty much from here, at least my experience with it. And yeah, I don't have much else to add. How about you?
That's it from my side. This was an emotional one.
There was a great one. And to the viewer, as always, give us subscribe, follow us on Spotify and Apple. We are any sort of signal that you can give that you like this podcast and you want to see more of this. We love it. And if you're on YouTube, please comment and say if there's anything we can do better, if there's any topics that you want us to cover or any particular people you want us to bring on. We are very, very open to hear how you think we should do better or how we should take this podcast. So yeah, I guess I'm out.
Awesome. That was beautiful. Thanks, Simon, and thanks, guys. See you in the next one.
Take care.